Hi guys, it's the Gin&Tonic show. Welcome to another show on this Sunday, 1800 p.m. UTC. Sundays, this time it's always the Gin&Tonic show where we discuss Islam, what is happening in Islam, what is new in Islam, and some questions or some suggestions or anything that you want to talk about regarding Islam. Now, the way that it works is that I normally give some definitions, then we have a video of the week, misconception of the week, some news topics, and then finally the hadith of the week. Now, what I do in the beginning, and I don't understand why, but I always need to do the definitions. Now, if you go back in time, you will see I do this, I think, on every single show for the last, 5 or 6 years. By the way, if you want to see earlier episodes, please feel free to go to archive.godless.ch where you will find past shows. Now, not all of them, because we were shut down due to some false flagging, so there are some shows missing, unfortunately. So let me just say who we are and why we are doing this. There's no words such as a racist or a philatelist or a astrologist, and there should be no need for a word like atheist, because it identifies me, the human being, as something that I am not. In other words, it is something that is absent. I do not have a God belief. So I don't normally go to people and say, hi, I am, like I don't have wings. I don't have a God belief. These are things that people don't normally do. And yet theists have created this word atheist just to set us apart from theists. It gets really weird when they start saying, well, an atheist has a goal, being an atheist is a religion in itself, and therefore it is an ism, and therefore make the atheist practicing atheism. And that's when it gets really weird. And this is when I say, no, come on, guys. There is no necessity to do that. There is really no need to go to these extremes just because you don't understand what an atheist is. Okay. Oh, Hangout. This is what I didn't do. Thanks, GP. Okay. I fucked up. Sorry. Yes. This is me because I was early today. I had too much time. And because I had too much time, I did not do what I was supposed to do, which is something that I normally do well in advance. And today, because I had too much time, I forgot to do it. Okay, so hang on, let me just quickly fix this. Oh goodness, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. Okay, it's the first time this happened, but there's always something going wrong, isn't there? So it's quite strange. Okay, come on. And of course, now it's bloody slow for some odd reason. Oh, goodness. This is terrible. But we'll get there in a second. Just give me 60 seconds and I will have this thing up and running, I'm sure. It's strange because normally I am like so conscientious to do everything, and now this time I was so early that I thought, everything is done, and it shows it was not. So in other words, I need the link here, I need this here. Oh goodness, so the live also doesn't work, and it should have been a hint when there was nobody here. There you go. And put this in here. There you go. Save everything. Yep, done, out. Everything should be working as normal now. There you go. No, I'm not drunk. No, not yet. I'll leave that for later. No, I'd actually be a good Muslim because I don't like drugs. I don't like alcohol. I don't smoke anymore. No, I normally have lists, okay? And today, like I said, I was so early that I didn't do this. That's why it somehow it got lost along the way. Okay, so I was talking about some people thinking that an atheist has goals and stuff, making it an ism, and therefore making me practice atheism, which is absolutely absurd to the highest degree. Now, an atheist, and also just while we're on it, agnostic, stupid. I mean, there's no such thing as an agnostic or agnostic, because you can't know that a God exists. You can't know that a God does not exist. So the word agnostic and agnostic is stupid. So, we can just forget it. So I don't make any claims. The theist does. So they need to come up with the compelling evidence, which they have not managed to do for the last, 3,000-4,000 years. Now, why we talk, being non-Muslims and without any God belief, why is it that I talk about Islam? Well, the number one thing is to educate and to inform. Okay, now I try not to bash, and I try not to bash indiscriminately, and least of all, bash Muslims, because I actually feel sorry for most Muslims, because most Muslims are better than their God, and they've just been indoctrinated. They've been brainwashed, and that is why they believe what they believe, unfortunately. But unfortunately, the others still exist, those who are not better than their God. And this is why we need to inform people. So we need to say, what is Islam? And this is where Islam goes a different route compared to other God belief systems, okay, where Christianity tries to build, and I, I almost managed to get into Jehovah's Witnesses today, but unfortunately, I was forbidden to do so, because I was not allowed to confront anybody. This would have been fun. But anyway, Christians try and build the kingdom of heaven in people's hearts. Okay, this is what Christianity is supposed to be about. Now, Islam tries to build the kingdom of heaven here on earth, now. And this is why Islam is basically, and I love this definition, an Arab supremacist socio-political ideology masquerading as a religion. Now, we always hear that Islam is a religion, it's just a religion, we love Jesus and things like that. And if you go and you criticize this, they have invented a word to stop you from criticizing Islam, the bad ideas within Islam. And this is something that I want to talk about today, this Islamophobia. So the goal in Islam is that they want to establish a caliphate for the Ummah, for all the Muslims, where 99.999% of the Muslims don't believe what the next Muslim believes, which means that almost every Muslim believes something slightly different than the next Muslim. Now, to get everybody under one hat, they call it the Ummah, which it is not. But what they try and do is just establish the caliphate and then go and have what they call the Sharia, the path. And this is the Islamic law, establish that in this caliphate. And then when everybody lives in this caliphate under the Sharia, then we're going to have peace. And that is why they get away with saying, well, Islam is peace, where Islam is not peace, but it is peace. So you have this dualism, what I call the internal and the external dualism, which I've explained a couple of times. And then you have political, military, and spiritual Islamic goals. And this is what we try and explain here. This is what the show is about: analyze facts and explain Islam and contents. Now, the way it works is, if you just want to watch and make some comments and just type and chat and blah, go to live.godless.ch. If you want to come here and participate, if you want to actually talk, then you go just enter hangout.godless.ch. And if you want to watch past shows, you just go and enter archive.godless.ch. All right. Now, as I explained in the beginning, there's a question to ask everybody. Here is a question to ask everyone on today's show. More people are watching YouTube. Okay, you need to explain what that is. The video of the week that I have selected falls right into this topic, because it's called Online Islamophobia Reaches Epidemic Proportions. Now, this is done by an agency which is called Demos. And this Demos, apparently they ran a study of sorts, and they said this Islamophobia is what they say a lot of people are following this, and a lot of people are using Islamophobia to highlight the problems that society has with Islam. They don't really seem to care that there is a problem. They don't seem to care that Islam does have a problem. But they go and they say Islamophobia highlights or is there to highlight the problems people have with Islam. And they show that they say this is reaching epidemic proportions because like, I don't know, 3,000-4,000 tweets every day, which are criticizing Islam. Now, the funny thing is, we've got millions and billions of Twitter and messages, tweets. And then you're talking about a couple of thousand. There's like 0.0000004 something percent are in any way concerning themselves with Islam. And they worry about this. This is quite strange. Anyway, so, but they have them, they go and they interview people, and they have the usual mix of a lying Imam, the regressive left, and the female apologist. And it's pathetic, really, it's pathetic. And this falls right into what I want to talk about today, Islamophobia and the human values. Now, misconception of the week. And this is what the rationalizer sent me. This is quite funny, because he just sent me an email saying just 2 words: prostrate cancer. If you just hear this, you don't really notice it. But after a while, I thought this is so funny that I thought I must share it with you guys. Prostrate cancer. It's quite funny. Oh, goodness. Especially since when you're prostrating, you are sticking your bum in the air. So, you know, it's perfect for a prostate exam. And it's quite funny. Oh, and this Islamophobia, talking of which, I always find it funny that, and I'm going to show this in a photo later on, that they go and they say, okay, I'm going to the mosque in East London, showing how wonderful Islam integrates people into society. But what they don't show is that there's a men entrance and there's a women entrance. How's that fit in? Nobody cares. Okay, I've got a quote of the week from this video. I mean, this video is so sick. I mean, it makes your blood boil. And like normally, I'm a pacifist, okay, but here I'd gladly make an exception, because this woman, this female apologist, she says, well, nobody cared when you have terrorism. Well, you're not allowed to say it's Islamist terrorism. It's just terrorism. I don't know why, but you're not allowed to say. Nobody cared because the victims looked like me, because she's wearing, of course, the full Arabic attire. Now you care because the victims look like you. I mean, that is now a racist statement for me. That she says nobody cared when the victims were black, or when the victims were Arabic or something, but now the victims are white and now you care. That is so callous. That is so wrong. It's quite sick, I think. Anyway, here's a question to ask everyone on today's show. More people on YouTube. Is ex-Muslim doing a live stream? Oh, is ex-Muslim doing a live stream? Naughty bugger! Why is he doing one when we are on? That's not nice. I mean, I always used to, dodge the times when the Magic Sandwich Show was on, or Atheist Experience, to exactly not keep people away from that. Okay, Jinn&Tonic 21. Which Islamic country do you think will have an anti-Islamic or Sharia uprising? Which Islamic country do you think will have an anti-Islamic or Sharia uprising? So is the question, which of the countries which currently have a Muslim majority will stop having a Muslim, or no, will continue having Muslims, where the people go and complain about Sharia or complain about Islam being part of everyday life or being part of, well, there is no Sharia law fully implemented in any country as far as I'm aware. I mean, I consider Saudi Arabia to be Sharia run, for sure, definitely. And I mean, basically the whole of Middle East. But Muslims always say no, because it's not really Sharia, and I don't even know why. Which Islamic country do you think will have an anti-Islamic or Sharia uprising? That's a good question, actually. I don't know. Is there going to be a revolution? If there is one, I actually think that people in Iran,
Egypt.
that the people in Iran are going to protest first. Sorry, GP, you said what?
I said Egypt because they've already had one. When the Muslim Brotherhood took over, they had a military coup to get rid of them.
Oh, good point. Good point, yes. Well, but that was not, okay, but they hadn't implemented it yet. I mean, Morsi was about, I don't know, Egypt.
Well, they banned the Muslim Brotherhood. It's now officially again an illegal party.
True.
So they've kicked them out totally. And they've been arresting them left, right and centre. And I think a lot of them have tried to escape to Europe.
Actually, it's true. But it's not that they said, okay, we don't want Islam in the country. We don't, actually, they have. We don't want Sharia. They said, we don't want the Muslim Brotherhood in here. Actually, you're right.
But in Europe, it probably be France, Germany. They are the people who are most belligerent and quite likely to go against the government.
Yeah. Well, we've had the Green Revolution in Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran. In the Islamic Republic of Iran, when they had the Green Revolution, people also said, no, we do not want Islam here. We want a secular government, not exactly the way that it was under the Shah, but more along those lines, because in those days, Islam did not play a role at all. I don't know what Turkey is going to do, because at the moment, I think they're swinging the way that it was in Iran. But there's still a lot of, resistance, let's call it that, towards Islamic government or structures being implemented.
Well, I find it ironical now that Erdogan is blaming IS on Kurdish attacks. That was what I was reading today. It's like he is attacking every enemy he's possibly got and blaming them for every ill that he's probably got. We all know that Erdogan does not like the Kurds.
Yeah.
His special forces have been picking on them for a good year or two now. So he's now saying, oh, I'm not really that bad against the Turks because the Islamic State is the ones who just blown you up. And it makes you wonder, did he just have a little something to do with that as well?
Exactly. You never know. With Erdogan, I don't think anybody knows what he's on about. I don't understand what he's actually trying to do and what his ultimate and ulterior motives are. So I have no clue what he's going to do and what he's on about. Okay. I would like then let's go through a couple of topics here, because I have, let's take this one. Let's start with the Saudi Gazette, because a couple was, why is he not bringing this? This is very strange. Why is he not leaving this on top? Okay, we'll just have to leave it here for the time being then. Okay, a Saudi couple has been deported from Germany before starting honeymoon. Now, it looks as though they're clamping down on this, because a Saudi couple who actually did nothing wrong, okay, I think this is stupid, but they applied for a visa in France and then changed their mind and then arrived in Germany, thinking that because it's a Schengen area, they do not need to, it doesn't really matter where they start their trip, their honeymoon, uh, because it's all one area. It's like, if you have a visa for the United States, it doesn't really matter whether you arrive in Chicago or New York. Here, it mattered. So the Saudi couple were escorted back to Saudi just because they didn't arrive in France, which I think is stupid. I mean, this is like showing the paranoia that is prevalent at the moment. I don't quite understand why they would go and deport the people just because they arrived in Germany instead of arriving in France, which is where they applied for the visa for. This is quite weird. Anyway, but there must be some rule or law or something like this that says if you go apply at the French embassy or French whatchamacallit, consulate, then that is where you need to go. Okay, then Germany again. The German interior minister is now contemplating a ban of full face veils, in other words, burqa, niqab, and things like that, in public places. So this actually might come in that after France and Belgium, that Germany is going to be the next country to do this. So this is quite strange if they're really going to implement this. I don't know how they're going to handle this. I know that in Switzerland, a woman went there and she paid the fine and said, okay, I didn't know this, took off the veil, and that was the end of the story. So this is going to be quite strange if this is going to come in, because, I mean, in the larger cities, you see thousands, hundreds, I don't know how many burqas every day. I mean, they're everywhere. And in New York, they killed an imam and his second in command, and now Muslims are afraid that anybody who is wearing Muslim attire will be targeted. Now, I have two sentiments here. One is, I think it's stupid that anybody would target an individual Muslim for anything, because the individual Muslim who is walking down the street is probably a great guy, so there's no reason to do that. On the other hand, I have this thing, why would a Muslim walk around in full Muslim attire? Because you can, I don't know if you can see this in the picture, in the background, there's a guy walking around here in the left corner, and he is wearing this dress, this Arab dress. Why would anybody in New York walk around like that when this is, quite openly sort of an identifier? The same as a burqa is an identifier.
I'm looking at Google and on YouTube, and your pictures aren't showing there. They're only showing on the Hangouts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I'm looking at both of them correctly. I'm seeing the chat on the YouTube, but I can't see any of the pictures, just on the Hangout.
If I go down here, da. Oh, shit, I hate it. Yeah, true. I wonder why. Because the last time they showed. Okay, then I'm not going to show them. I'm just going to comment on them, and I'm just going to, just to say, okay, this is what, okay, I don't understand why. Maybe Google has fiddled again, because I'm doing absolutely nothing differently.
Like
okay.
I said, you need a god to manage your life.
Oh, he says, I could see the BBC picture, I could see the pics.
Try again, maybe it's just my end. Maybe there's a bit of...
Okay, yeah, but it's good to get the feedback regardless, because I never know what is showing and when and how and blah, blah, blah. So it's always good to get that. Okay, so this was the two imams. We're now, I don't know, if every Muslim in America is afraid that they're going to be targeted. And my one thing is, it's stupid to do so, because they're also targeting Sikhs, for example, because, people are not really that savvy, and they don't really know the difference. So now Sikhs are getting attacked because people think they're Muslim. And they don't understand the difference between a bad idea in Islam and your everyday run-of-the-mill Muslim, who is probably a great guy. But then on the other hand, I don't understand why Muslims insist on identifying themselves as Muslim, especially women. This is beyond me. Okay, the next one that I have is, let me just see if I can share this again. What happens if I do this again? Maybe it was the first one didn't go so well. So here we have Anjem Chowdhury, a guy that I hate with a passion, who apparently is responsible for hundreds of people going over to Syria, who has radicalized hundreds of people in the UK. And apparently now he overstepped the line, saying, I can't remember what he said. And he is now going to, he signed, he went and signed an oath to ISIS. ISIS has been banned under UK law as a terrorist organization, and he apparently swore an oath to ISIS. ISIS is the best or whatever, or by ISIS and everything they do. And now he is in court for that. Now the funny thing is that people are saying, well, should he really be in jail? Because he can radicalize even more people in jail. But then I suppose, like I said earlier, that you can be in solitary confinement. I don't know if that is...
No, actually, he can't. He actually threatened years ago that if he ever went to prison, he'd radicalize everyone there. The prison system is actually powerless currently to put him in segregation. They can't stop him from, mixing and hanging out with his mates, converting new ones.
Actually, they can. They can stop him. What you're talking about is going to be discussed on Monday, as they're releasing a new investigation into the prison officers. They have a name for them, NOBS, I believe it's called, the organisation.
Well, maybe at some point this year or next.
Can I finish, please?
Well, right now I can't.
Could I finish? They found it's the problem was the establishment for the prisons were institutionalized into weakness. They were not attacking any religions at all and preventing their spreading. They were going the opposite direction. It's all been exposed. They're putting in new methods. But when you said they couldn't put him into solitary, no, they can't put him in a single cell on his own. That would be a violation of human rights. You can only do it for a few days or so. But they can do what they did with the IRA and put them into H blocks where only Chowdhury and his fellow fanatics are. So they can segregate him with other Muslims, but do they want to?
Or they can send him to Guantanamo.
No. If they send him to Guantanamo, he'll be released within a short period of time because they want to close that place down.
Or open a new one, open the British one on some island somewhere.
Well, we send him to Germany. Actually,
okay, this is quite funny.
South Africa. What's happening in South Africa? Because we're not.
Robben Island is available for rent.
Well, it's part of the EC, so they can get to Germany from Ireland. I still think Germany's a good idea.
No, what is that place? Alcatraz is also available, isn't it?
Alcatraz is a tourist trap. It's no longer a prison.
Well, you can reopen it.
No, not ever since Clint Eastwood was there. They've become full of too many empty chairs.
Well, they can renovate one room for Anjem. Come on.
No, actually, Mujaad Nawaz has been on LBC this weekend, and he's come out with a lot of things that I've not heard before. For instance, you know the Sharia patrol?
Yeah.
That was operating. Well, apparently that little group, the people who are running it, have been undergoing therapy to deconvert them from radical Islam. And they've actually managed to persuade the leader of the group to be anti-radical. He's still a practicing Muslim, but he now understands why he was wrong in his Muslim beliefs and that he shouldn't be doing Sharia patrols.
Well, if you pay me enough, I'll say that.
Yeah, he is actually going around the prisons. He's still a convict, trying to deconvert other radicals. And maybe they could do that to Chowdhury. He would love that.
I don't think Chowdhury would want to. It'd take away his feeling of specialness.
Well, yeah, I mean, Chowdhury doesn't recognise British law because he says he's now under caliphate law of Islamic State.
Come on, he's playing games.
I know he's
That
playing
was
games.
his speciality. Just just borderline, just below being contemptible or something.
But there is a real problem in British prisons that you might start seeing in Europe, so this is why I'll mention it. They are saying that the criminal gangs are getting intimidated by Muslim gangs, and as a result, this report, which will be released tomorrow, has said the prisons are now becoming Muslim dominated, Islamic radical dominated, and what the long-term prisoners are getting is short-term prison gang members to become radicalised, ready to do their terrorism when they get released in a short period of time. What else was also said about the place?
Well, just while you're trying to remember,
cons.
this has been going on for a very long time, though, hasn't it? It's got to the
7
point,
years
I
on
think, that there were some prisoners who wouldn't even shower naked because they're uncircumcised and they're worried about, offending, which means being, attacked by Muslim prisoners. Well, it's just something, and then it's just like people
Don't wave your uncircumcised cock at my direction.
This is true, because what was happening was
That is true.
they were getting, if they were having their showers and they were getting attacked, the Muslims would go up to them later and said, well, if you'd been part of our gang, you wouldn't have been attacked. And that's why they're getting converted into Muslims, into Islam.
That's sick.
And the establishment was turning, it was just empowered weakness. They were deliberately not doing anything about it. The sad part is the BBC media is already pumping out the fallacy that it's all down to money, and it wasn't. It was down to being scared of offending Muslims.
Okay, let's go to the next topic. ISIS jihadis, people that arrive in Syria and Iraq to join ISIS, to join Daesh, ISIL, IS, or whatever you want to call them, they don't know enough about Islam. They have no clue. They just want to go fight. They've heard that you need to do something for your God, and that's it. So, but they don't really know anything about it. So they are given books, because you get these books, Islam for Dummies or the Quran for Dummies. Apparently, that a lot of these books have been sold to Syria and Iraq, and the new guys are getting these books so that they can learn what Islam is all about.
Well, this has been known for a couple of years, hasn't it?
Sorry?
Hasn't this been like, this has been known for a couple of years, hasn't it?
Well, okay, I have heard that the people who arrive there have precious little knowledge of Islam, but I didn't know it was this bad that you have Islam for Dummies lying around in the indoctrination centers, because you have this process where you get the guy coming in, then he has to go through a 1-week indoctrination phase with an Imam who tells him what Islam is all about and why it's good for him to martyr himself, and what the benefits are in heaven if he does, and if he kills himself for his God, that this is going to be much better than anything else. So this is what they get, but then the people say, yeah, but why am I doing this? They have no idea what Islam is all about. So there you go.
Where does that saying come from? Is it a hadith? The martyrs in paradise, that they'd wish to leave paradise, go back to earth, only so they can martyr themselves again. Is that like, where does that come from?
That's not Quran. Quran says yes, martyr.
I know it's not the Quran, but
the death for Allah is the highest. But anything else than that, I don't know.
It's a hadith because it was attributed to Muhammad, who said the jihadis who get killed in battle will, if they are pure of heart, will want to come back to do it over and over and over again.
I wasn't 100% sure if that was an actual hadith or just something that's being used in propaganda, but like the imams and scholars are coming out with.
Okay, here's a quickie on what an ISIS human shield looked like. Because what they do, they just recruit a car, a private car, and make the owner drive it. So that the owner, who is not a member of Daesh, ISIS, ISIL, and who's not a terrorist, but just a normal civilian. They make him drive his car to where they want to, and then they tell everybody about it so that they are not being attacked on the road, because they had a convoy with military vehicles which was annihilated. And because they are such cowards, what they did is they recruited all these private cars with the private drivers, and then left. I think this was Mosul or wherever it was. Oh no, this was Manbij. And they just left some snipers behind, and the rest all went into the cars and buggered off, leaving everything behind, and so that they don't get attacked on the way they go and get private cars. Now, this is quite interesting, and here this is probably Islamophobia as well, because when people are liberated from ISIS, what they do is they burn the burqas and cut off their beards. And this is quite funny, as an outward sign of freedom. And okay, if this is true, now of course I can't verify this. Okay, so this is just the spectator. I don't know who this is, where they get this from, what their source is. I have no clue where this comes from. But it would make sense if you think about most Muslim women not being too fond of being hidden away in this black bin, whatever you want to call this, if it's the burqa or the niqab. And then it makes sense that they want to go and burn this, and men, as an outward sign of their being a Muslim or being forced to be a Muslim, will go and cut off the beards if they are Yazidis or whatever. So this makes sense. But then it goes a little bit further, because a lot of times Muslim women will say, it is my identifier, it is my way of showing that I am close to my God. It's a spiritual thing that I'm doing, and it's my modesty coming through, and all these other bullshit things that they've been indoctrinated to say. So I think this is sick. I think, I don't know why people come and say, well, it's a sign of freedom if a woman is allowed to wear a burqa. No, it's not. It's a sign of freedom if she can choose whatever she wants, not just a burqa. And then it's freedom, and not like this. Now, apparently, Turkey is now hitting a wall, because the EU is giving him the finger, the US is giving him the finger. Nobody really agrees with Erdogan. So his image as strongman is rapidly dwindling now in the US, where he says, I want the US to give me Gulen. And they said, yeah, but hang on, he's living in Pennsylvania. What the fuck do you want from a guy an old guy who's living in Pennsylvania? And he says, I demand that you speed up the process and extradite Gulen so that he can come to Turkey and we can prosecute him. And they said, well, I mean, you need to prove to us that he really committed a crime. So apparently they sent like 84 or something documents which mention the word Gulen, but don't show that he was in any way involved in this. This is what Muslims think. Just send something which mentions it. This should be enough. It's not. And so the US is telling him, listen, go and pull the other one. Nothing is happening. Okay, Islamophobic heckler interrupts Muslim woman's TV interview on Islamophobia. Now, this is the Huffington Post talking about the video of the week that I selected, and I'm just realizing this now, because I first had this interview, this article, as part of the news for today, and I only selected the video yesterday, I think. So this is quite funny. I'm just realizing that this is exactly the video of the week, an Islamophobic heckler. Now, I don't understand where this thing comes from. I don't know who invented. I mean, there's a lot of claims who invented the word Islamophobia. This is such a stupid word. I mean, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any content. It's just stupid. That's all it is. Because Islam, we know, is a political ideology. a phobia is a mental disorder. So is Islam a mental disorder? And this is always what I'm making from Islamophobia. It's a mental disorder of Islam or something. I don't know what this.
Yes, the irrational fear of Islam against the Kafir.
Say again?
It's the irrational fear of Islam against the Kafir.
Yeah, it is. And now that will be Kafirophobia.
No, it's, well, if you want to be technical about it, I just like to say it's whatever the opposite of what the media says it is.
I actually thought that. Oh, sorry.
No,
I just want to say the media doesn't say what it is. Nobody says what Islamophobia actually is. Nobody defines it. It's a totally artificial word which doesn't mean anything.
Well, it's been dictionarized to mean anybody who dislikes Muslims. So it doesn't mean what it says. It means Islamophobia.
Well, that's kind of what I said last time on the show, isn't it? Most people, when they think Islamophobia, what that translates to them is anti-Muslim. You don't like someone just because they're a Muslim.
Which is stupid, exactly. So
I think the
Islamophobic heckler, all he said is we don't want to be politically correct, which is absolutely true. Why should
what he actually said was, you know, we don't want Sharia law here or something like that. Exactly. I remember thinking when I watched this video, you know, it's a BBC video interviewing this young Muslim woman about her experience with Islamophobia, rises in racism since Brexit, and then you just got this bloke just off camera making some comment about Sharia, and then she walks up to him, she's like, sir, you want to talk to me about Sharia, you can talk to it. And I was watching that and I was thinking that couldn't have been more perfect if they had planned it. It was just, I thought it was actually a brilliant illustration, and maybe they did plan it, I don't know. It was just so perfect.
Yeah, clips on YouTube. I watched it and wrote a few complaints to the BBC about it because it was blatant propaganda from the BBC. It was disgusting.
What, do you think that actually was set up?
Well, the thing is that
I think it was set up insofar as the BBC had an agenda to promote Islam and Muslims, and they were trying to paint any other view as being politically dangerous and xenophobic. And I was absolutely disgusted by the unimpartiality of the BBC.
The propaganda, particularly from the BBC and the Guardian, isn't anything new. You know, and it's not just non-Muslims. You know, liberal Muslims and ex-Muslims complain about it all the time. I remember this one presentation in a university where ex-Muslims were called like native informants of the new McCarthys, and it like all the people who should actually be allies, you know, all the leftists and the liberals who believe in freedom of religion and all this like that, all the ones that actually should have been on the side of the ex-Muslims and the liberal Muslims and the reformist Muslims, they were all on the side of the bigot. It's incredible.
Yeah, but the BBC is supposed to have a charter to be impartial. And
well, when that 18-year-old lad in Germany, in Munich, shot up the place, you know, I think they actually changed it because his name was Ali David, was it Son something? And they actually named him as David. And I think I saw one report where they actually changed his last name to make it not sound so Middle Eastern. And it was incredible to me. It was only when it actually came out, he was like an Iranian German, and everyone else was reporting his real name, you know, Ali Sonjoy, that they stopped referring to him as, you know, German shooter David.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And what they're saying here is that because this was, okay, the background was a group which went and analyzed Twitter messages, which this is what I mentioned earlier. And they showed how all these angry people are so Islamophobic. Anybody who criticizes Islam for whatever reason is then Islamophobic. I don't understand why or how, but that's how they make it look. And then they took this Ruqayya Harris, this reporter, who's also a student and a writer and I don't know what all, and she wears a hijab out of modesty, but the makeup was impeccable. Now, to me, that's I don't know, it's hypocrisy. Because the whole point of a hijab, the whole point of covering yourself is not to draw attention to yourself. So you don't use makeup. You don't paint your nails. You don't wear diamonds in your teeth. You don't have these things because you're not supposed to draw attention to yourself. And she was doing exactly the opposite. So I don't quite understand how this was working. Anyway, so I found this quite funny, how in the UK now this Islamophobia is being touted as though it is something like really bad, that you're not allowed to criticize Islam. Because if you are criticizing Islam, you're criticizing Muslims, and you're not.
That was a deliberate attempt by a think tank. Remember that ITV did some research published 10 years after the report on Islamophobia in the UK, and it was admitted then that the person who was the CEO of the think tank had deliberately used the word Islamophobia in the hopes that Islam would eventually water down to be a very Church of England style wishy-washy vicar with cucumber sandwiches type religion, not realising that it would become fanatical Ajahn Chowdhuries ranting and raving and burning poppies.
Oh, not the perception.
Attempt, and it was picked up by the left in universities and became the de facto new racism for all the young liberals and Trotskyites that were floating around in the college campuses.
Okay, because I think what they're trying to do is just trying to manipulate the perception of Islam being just another religion.
Yeah, that's how it all started. They thought if we just ignore Islam as a problem, it will just turn into this wishy-washy Church of England.
Yeah.
And it never did. Instead, they covered up the sort of like blatant bigotry that was going on within certain mosques and with certain preachers from like Abu Ghadada, or Have a Banana, as he's sometimes called. And why am I looking at a penis and balls on your screen? All right. Anyway,
you've got a dirty one-track mind.
Yeah, well, that's what it looks like. Ever since I saw that ice cream being banned because it looked too much like something Arabic.
This is what I was wanting to show you earlier, where this program actually went to this mosque, which is in East London, and they showed the mosque outside. What they didn't show
is the park.
Oh, I don't know the address.
Yeah, I'm thinking it is.
Okay, but the point is, what they never showed was this huge big entrance with Allah in the middle and everything. But here on the side, I don't know if you can read this, just underneath the traffic light, you see a small sign, and this is main entrance for men. So these two doors are intended for men only. And then here on the side, you have a little sign which is the entrance for women, much smaller, less decorative, with no Allah on top, nothing at all.
I remember a scene from that BBC show, Citizen Khan, where like the mosque committee were just a group of men and all sitting around, and then it got to the point on making the space a bit better for women and giving women better access, and someone just mentioned it, and then they all burst out laughing.
Yeah, I can imagine. But this for me is indicative of what Islam is about. This is the way that they want to shape society. The men get everything, the grandeur, the everything, and the women get a small side entrance. And this is what I hate about Islam.
I'm looking at the internet, and it is Finsbury Park Mosque, going by the photographs. And as you know, that was the one where the radical preacher Have a Banana used to preach at. It's a Wahhabi-based religious mosque.
And they don't show this. They don't go into the differences.
Wasn't that also the same mosque where you had that bloke that was out on bail with an electronic tag, and he managed to slip out of the country by coming out of that mosque in a burqa?
It's where all the radical terrorists were going to before they started cracking down on it about 10 years ago. That was the reason why Europe blamed England and called us the terrorist capital of the world. London.
Londonistan.
Yeah, that mosque. They say that they've mended their ways now.
Mended their ways. That's a nice way of
Well,
saying it.
They've got rid of radical preachers.
But when it comes to like this whole catering thing, I mean, what you said about you know, this person was sort of hoping or expecting that Islam would sort of cool down, become more like Christianity. I mean, if you think back to Salman Rushdie, you know, I mean, what was the response of a load of politicians on the left and the right? It was, you know, it was criticizing him, a writer, for writing a book that was just a book of fiction. I mean, you may as well criticize J.K. Rowling for writing Harry Potter. And then you had like, you know, Tories trying to gain votes with signs, ban the book. Like me, I'll ban it. And it was just this catering to it. I mean, when you had this, they should have been slapped down. It's like, yes, you have a right to protest. You even have a right to burn the book. But no, you don't have a right to make us ban it. And it's just spread. It's from pretty much day one. It really is just from day one. I mean, yeah, you could always talk about things that were going on at that time, rampant racism, the phenomenon, what was called Paki bashing, which from some of my older Asian friends have told me was pretty much a national pastime. I mean, yeah, it's not like we had it easy, but the whole enabling of what would come to be today, you know, oh, treat this religion with kids' gloves, it's all special. I don't know why we didn't just treat it the same as any other religion from day one.
I'm just flabbergasted. I'm just looking at what the Jinn&Tonic show, 21st of August. Started streaming live hangout talking about Islam and shit. Welcome to the Jinn&Tonic show live every Sunday. And then he's using my text. I don't understand what this is about. I don't know why you would do that.
Are you saying that someone's infringing your copyright?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why he's taking my show, why he's taking my text, my everything, and making it like a. And there's who's talking now is what's his name? Who's the guy with the V? So he's gone.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
The guy with the V, Thunderous.
Thunderous. So that's weird. Why would anybody do that?
What, Thunderous is stealing the Jinn&Tonic show?
No, Thunderous is on the Jinn&Tonic show, which ex-Muslim has started.
But he's only using one N for his gin.
Yeah, but I don't know why anybody would do that. That's weird. Okay, I'll have to.
He's changed it. He's corrected it to double N.
Okay, I'll have to ask him why he's doing that. I don't quite understand what the motivation is for that.
Yeah, he's copied absolutely everything. Cheeky monkey.
Strange, eh? I don't know. I'll write him a message and ask him why he's doing that. Why?
He's trying to take your audience and your guest speakers.
Quite strange. Okay. I would like to go a little bit into human values. Now, GPZ pointed out last time, and quite rightly so, that if I do that, I should somehow define this a bit, what it is that I'm talking about, because I'm not talking about what the Quran says. I'm not talking about what the various texts are saying, but this is actually about what people feel, what people think the personal values are that they have, and how these personal values are being represented by Islam. Now, if I go and look at what values are, because I'm talking about timeless values. So these are like core values, which they define a person to help him or her articulate what he or she stands for. They require no justification. and guide a person in making decisions. They're often passed down from parent to child and go a long way in explaining why a person acts in a particular way. So a value refers to a person's principle or standards of behavior, like family values, personal, socio-cultural, material, moral, spiritual values. Now, where, for example, morality is basically understanding the distinction between right and wrong, and then living according to that understanding based on circumstances and intention. And that is very important, because it might be very right to chop off my head. Because if I am in, I don't know, an avalanche or in an earthquake, and I've got a couple of tons of brick deposited on top of me, and it's going to take me 2 days to die, then I think it's justified to cut off my head to make me die quicker, so that I don't have to suffer, because you can't move that kind of equipment or that kind of weight so quickly. So I'm going to die anyway, and rather than let me die over 2 days, somebody's going to let me die within a couple of seconds. So it's always based on circumstances and intention. That's incredibly important. Now, examples of values would be like honesty or responsibility or truth. I mean, truth. I mean, every second thing in Islam is truth. The truth channel, looking for truth and seeking truth. The truth seeker. It's crazy, but that's what they're doing. Then it's tolerance, cooperation, solidarity, peace, respect, and things like that. Then you can have affection, adventure, abundance, acceptance, creativity, and so on and so forth. Now, they can be positive and negative, where positive values are dependability, loyalty, creativity, respectfulness, and then negative ones are greed, self-interest, and things like that. So, give me your opinion. What does Islam suggest, and how applicable are these compared to your own? So, what would you say is one of your core values, and do you see, or would you say that this is being represented in Islam?
Just before we get to Islam, could I just ask one question, because I'm very curious about people's reaction to this?
Sure.
I think it was last week or a few days ago, I was reading in the paper, there was this woman who was very depressed, and she had 2 snakes as pets. One of them was actually like a boa constrictor. And she was suicidal, and she was planning on killing herself, and because she didn't want her snakes to starve to death, she got some scissors and a knife, cut the heads off both the snakes. She apparently actually fucked it up a few times, like there were signs that she kept on trying and not doing it, so the snakes suffered. And after she managed to get both their heads off, she swallowed either one of the heads or both the heads, and then threw it up again. When police found her, she had the headless body of the snakes wrapped around her, and they were still moving. Now, the very interesting thing is that according to the RSPCA, snakes can be aware for up to an hour after being beheaded. So it was quite likely that they were aware that they were being, not only that they were getting their heads cut off, but they were aware of being swallowed by their owner and then puked back up again.
Wow, that's sick.
I'm just wondering if anyone has a reaction to that.
No, the only reaction is sick.
What the fuck? Apparently, she only got banned from keeping animals for, I think it was 5 years. Might have been 10 years.
Oh, yes.
I don't think you should ever let me near an animal again.
No, that's gross. Okay.
I watch Alice Cooper videos, so I'm not particularly bothered.
No, if you watch Alice Cooper videos, no, he does everything for a laugh, doesn't he?
Well,
okay, what kind of a value? Who has a, come on, give me a value and then tell me if that is represented in Islam. Because if I go for truth,
when you say value, I mean, like, how far can we take it? Like, I mean, let's say, oh, I have a certain value, but there might be certain situations where it actually might be a good thing to break this value. Like, how far can we go? Like, we go into sci-fi territory?
Of course, yes.
Okay, well, I was trying to think of something that I would say is a timeless value, something is not okay, has never been okay, there's no justification, it's an act of pure evil, end of. And I was thinking about it, and one of the things that came to mind for me was rape. I can't think that rape could ever be justified. It could ever be a good thing to rape someone. And then I thought, well, let's say you had a time machine. You went back in time to Adolf Hitler's great-great-great-great-grandparent, either their grandmother or their grandfather, whichever, violently raped them to the point they never allowed anyone to have sexual contact with them again because they were traumatized for life. So Hitler's great-great-grandparent was never born, great-great-grandparent was never born, grandparent was never born, parent was never born, Hitler was never born, the Holocaust never happened. Now, I actually wonder, would that make it a good thing? And I realized that no, you've still traumatized for life an innocent human being who's never done anything. It's an act of evil. But is it less evil? But even though it's like an act of evil, would it actually be better to traumatize one innocent person for life to spare 12 million innocent people?
Yeah, but this is the same thing. Do you know the typical, or the, I think it's the most typical example in philosophy, the cable car or the train car experiment, where if you throw the switch, you save 5, but you kill 1. Do you or don't you?
Well, that is an interesting point. I mean, do you kill 100 people to save 1,000? Do you kill 1,000 to save 1,000,000?
Exactly.
Like, what makes that 1,000,000 better than 1,000?
Exactly. This is why this is the standard experiment, the standard thought experiment that you do in philosophy, because there is no real answer to it. But what do? Do you go there and do you throw the switch to make the cable car kill the 1 and save the 5? And then, of course, the next thing is, do you then actively throw somebody under the car so that it stops and you save the 5? So,
well, assuming that these are innocent people that have done nothing wrong, then even if we were all to, even if every single person in the whole wide world was to come together and say, you know what, bigger picture-wise, this is the moral thing to do. Even if we were all to agree on that, it doesn't change the fact that the act itself is still evil. It might be preferable, but it's still evil.
I'd like to challenge the concept of rape being evil by quoting the foundation of Rome. Do you remember its history, how it was founded by Romulus and Remus? And their
two werewolves. One of them killed the other.
No. The gang of Romulus and Remus went to another village and stole their women. Doesn't that not imply that they raped them?
Probably.
So the foundation of Rome, as far as the Romans concerned, was an honourable thing. It was a right thing to do. They didn't consider the rape as being atrocious and bad, so they wouldn't talk about it. They actually said, yeah, well, that's how Romulus and Remus built our great empire, from little humble things like stealing women.
Well, you know, America
and their wives.
Well, America was a great country that was built on the back of slavery, rape, and murder. It doesn't necessarily mean that these things were good things. You can acknowledge that it led to something great.
Yeah, but America doesn't brag about it, do they? They acknowledge it, but they don't brag about it.
Hmm.
Whereas the Romans, they wrote it into every part of their literature. That's how we know about it. Oh, how long? 2,400 years later?
Well, I mean, it's not exactly a secret that people with that commit acts of narcissism, psychopathy, sociopathic acts, it's not a secret that these can lead to greatness, and that this can lead to influence that lasts well after they're gone. But I'm not sure that's necessarily the same as
it's a quasi sort of like term of virtue. The Arabs had the same sort of philosophy as the Romans did regarding women. To them, it wasn't a moral issue. It was a case of, this is the way life is. You find a woman, you take a body. That's what.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that makes Islam and a number of other religions static. You know, I mean, this is what the religious texts say. This is what it will always be. It will always say these things are good, or at least allowed. It will always say these things are bad or forbidden. Whereas, if we step away and decide for ourselves, then, you know, it's human beings coming together, having a rational discussion, and, you know, saying, I think this is bad, here's my reasons for thinking it, and seeing how many people agree with you.
It's a recent change in our thinking then, Because if you go back to the Judea history, we have the Abraham, was it? No, it wasn't Abraham. It was the guy who threw his children out to be raped by the was it Sodom?
Lot, I'm thinking Lot.
Yeah, yeah. So he sent his children out to be raped. They were virgins. So obviously,
Well, the idea
something of a
there,
new it's become a non-virtue now, whereas back then they considered it had virtue. They considered the rape was better than the homosexual act that was being.
well, this also comes to this also comes to what you would consider to be a virgin. I'm fairly certain there was a history somewhere in the Abrahamic times where a virgin wasn't classified as someone who'd never had sexual intercourse or had never given birth. You know, so I mean that makes a particular sense if you think of the Virgin Mary.
Still
You
right.
know, she was married to a man, probably did have sexual intercourse. So I've always sort of had that question is, you know, well, why was she a virgin? Then when I found out there was a certain era where a virgin was classed as someone that had never given birth, oh yeah, that makes more sense.
Well, I'm only tackling it as a sort of like rape, as it's a change. It's changed from being what was considered as an okay thing. It was possibly a virtue if there was a good reason for doing it, to raping someone or having them being raped.
Well,
But
when
now, let me finish so people don't misunderstand me when they get to listen later. But now we have decided, and I agree, that unconsensual sex is an absolute abhorrent. It shouldn't be. We shouldn't have it. But it's something.
Well, I mean, it wasn't. You couldn't. I mean, in English law, you know, it wasn't until the 1990s that it even became law, or at least recognised in law, that a husband could rape his wife.
Yes, so it's been a very recent sort of like change of mental thinking.
I think I was reading. This was years ago. I can't remember what I was reading. I think it was human rights laws, but it was comments from judges and people. I believe in the 1950s when human rights laws were being codified, and there was this one. I might be wrong, but I think it was that. But I read this one comment where it was like outlawing rape in war, and there was this comment about how you know, for time immemorial, the taking and raping of women has been seen as part of the booty of war, and then there was some comment about how, you know, no more will this be allowed.
Yes, I think you're watching some of the Sharp programs. Remember Sharp with Sean Bean television? It is alluded.
I've never seen that.
Oh, it's well worth watching as a historical.
Sorry, can you say that again?
It's worth watching as a sort of like.
No, the name of the show.
Sharp. It's based on the books. Sharp.
I don't know the books.
Well, I'm afraid I can't remember what else it's.
I'll look it up. So it's a TV. So it's a show based on the book Sharp.
Yeah, and one of the programs was looking at one of the Spanish towns that was being liberated, and when the British troops entered, there was a lot of bit of raping and pillaging going on. But as Wellington, if I remember from the history book, says, once his armies sort of like got into sort of that warlike mode of fighting, at the end of the battle, he couldn't really stop them. He did send out the provost to try to enforce sort of like a decorum on the troops, but basically his soldiers were brutes.
But then you've also got certain actions you can take that are either good or bad, or you're either moral or immoral, purely depending on the circumstance. You know, like, is it moral to take a life? Well, you know, if it's just murder, then no. Well, what if it's in defense of someone else? Like, what if you have some psychopath that's about to blow up a bus full of school children? Most people would say, yeah, shoot the bastard. Or, you know, theft. Is it wrong to steal? Yeah. Well, what if it's someone starving? What if it's stealing a loaf of bread? Or what? Because it's the only way to get nourishment for their children. Oh, well, that's a bit different. So, you know, I mean, there are particular examples that, whether they're viewed as moral or immoral, completely depend upon the circumstance.
It also depends upon the era. That's why I think we have a bit of trouble with trying to look at Muhammad's Islam and decide whether he was being virtuous in some of the things he said and did, or whether, because of our 21st century morality, he was actually being another cad. It's
Well,
very,
if you think of apostasy for an example, back in ancient times, before we had secularism, before we had church and state, your religion was really integral to your tribe and who you are. If someone was to switch their religion, it very often meant switching allegiance to the enemy.
well, that's what
Which
the
was
modern
why,
Muslims actually say. It's if you become an apostate, you're becoming a traitor, and today, even traitors to your army are executed under the rules of law for cowardice. So,
well, that was something that happened back in World War One. You know, we didn't know about PTSD and things like that. So soldiers who were suffering from mental conditions that today we recognise, you know, just in the British Army, they were lined up and shot for being cowards.
can you say that Muhammad was being virtuous by saying apostates must be killed? Was Abu Bakr right by having his
Well, it's male
slaughtering
apostates.
afterwards?
Well, it's actually male apostates that have to be killed. If you're a female apostate, you're in prison.
Does it say male or female? I thought it was sexless, the comment. It just said anybody who didn't.
No, if you're a Muslim man and you apostate, you have 3 days to return to the faith. After 3 days, you're supposed to be put to death. If you're a woman Muslim and you apostate, then you're locked in the house, I think, for the rest of your life. Probably so you can keep pumping out more Muslims. What with Islam being passed on traditionally through the
I
father.
do remember reading that, but maybe it's something in a law book.
Well, to be fair, it may simply be more of a Sunni thing than a Shia. I'd have to look it up. But no, there's a lot of rules. There was a lot of rules set down more than 1,000 years ago, back in the founders of the schools of jurisprudence, who did actually specify. I think it was based on Hadith. But yeah, male, you got 3 days, then killed. Female, life imprisonment.
I remember last week when I was looking up this, and I'm doing it now on the Google, the only thing I could find about virtues were things like honour. And
Well, then
Honor is part of them.
then it comes to depend on what you consider to be honour. Like a couple of years ago, I had what you could basically call an international gathering in my kitchen. I had some friends from abroad. You know, 2 of them were Indian, South African. A girl that was half Syrian, and an American. Like, apart from the American, they were all ex-Muslims. The American was an ex-Christian, and it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. We're sitting in my kitchen listening to music, drinking, you know, just different alcoholic beverages, and my ex-Muslim friends started talking about honour, and at one point I actually interrupted them to say to my American friend, I should really explain to you what they're talking about, because like when they say honour, they don't mean it in the way you're thinking. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, me and you are both Westerners. You know, we were raised in Western culture, so when we think of honour, we think of the Western concept of honour. They're not talking about that. They're talking about the Islamic concept of honour. And she said, what's the difference? So I explained the difference. The Western world it has a very individualistic nature. In Western honour, it's personal integrity. You know, if my cousin or something does something deemed dishonourable, that doesn't impact on my honour. And why would it? I didn't do it. Yeah, the Islamic idea of honour is the complete reverse. It's not individualistic. It's basically communal reputation. You know, and I explained to her that in the Islamic concept of honour, if you do something deemed to be dishonourable, your great uncle who lives on the other side of the planet that you may have met once in your life, if that, will feel the shame of it and be tarnished by it.
I think I heard it put better by someone else last week, who said that to honour in an Arab culture was not so much what you said. Well, no, you could tell the truth about somebody. You could tell the truth about an Arab, but that could offend his honour if he didn't like what you said, even though it was the truth. It was all about the perceptions. That's why Muslims get extremely irate if you quote the Qur'an and say something about Muhammad, which is perfectly true, but they don't think it's honourable.
Well, is that so much about them, or is it the whole idea, as I explained it to my American friends, about their idea of honor being more like the reputation of the community or the reputation of the whole?
Do you understand the concept? Do you understand the concept of giving and losing face?
Yeah.
Because I think in Asia, this is what we call honor, is what they call give and losing face.
Well, do you want to elaborate a bit?
No, I just saw that because the concept of honor in Asia is more the communal feeling, whereas the singularity, what you are talking about as honor, from the non-Muslim or non-Asian concept where honor is a personal thing, that is called losing or giving face. So in other words, if you talk to somebody and you tell them something, okay, what you did was this and this and this and this, and then you manage to go around it and da-da-da, you're actually giving them face. In other words, you are increasing their honor by saying what you did was an honorable deed, and you are thus giving them face.
And then you can slag them off, and then there's sort of the classic cartoon Englishman's response: "How dare you sully my good name?"
Okay, that is then losing face. In other words, if I am in the presence of others telling you you are completely wrong and you've got no clue what you're talking about,
I wouldn't feel. I mean, I wouldn't feel that personally impacts my own sense of honor, my own personal sense of integrity. You know, I mean, it's part of the way I work. That if I'm wrong, I want to know I'm wrong. If I see a flaw in someone's argument, or at least I think it's a flaw, I'll point it out. But you know, if they can say, actually, no, you're misunderstanding it, and this is, you know, what's actually going on, you know, then I'll say, oh, okay, thank you, because I want to be right. You know, I don't want to be wrong.
I think everybody does.
Well, yeah, but there's a lot of people that can't accept the fact that they are wrong. You know, they automatically.
But that's how you experience. But this is experience. This is how you get to know things. That is experience. If somebody tells you, here you're right, here you're wrong. If somebody has that, then the only thing that you do is you learn through that.
But I suppose it's also the way that someone can say it. You know, like my defences would be raised if it wasn't just the fact that they were saying, actually, you're wrong, and here's why. But you know, they were just sort of outright mocking me and trying to humiliate me because I've made a mistake.
Okay, so if you, for example, if you say you have a sense of responsibility, and then you fuck up, does that impact your honor?
Well, it doesn't mean I don't have a sense of responsibility. It means I have a sense of responsibility, and I made a mistake. I'm a human being. I make mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Then I understand it the same way. Yeah. Okay, but I
suppose I will get kind of pissed off, as if in a very negative way. Sorry.
So we're not getting into the discussion that I was hoping we are going to get into, which is comparing the sort of the values that we have, and then comparing that to Islam. What kind of values do you have in Islam? What is it that Islam tries to tell its followers to live their life by? What kind of guidance is Islam giving in the form of?
Well, one of the things that actually occurred to me a while ago is that I'm not necessarily sure Islam does offer a moral code. There are plenty of things in Islam that are either allowed or forbidden that have absolutely no bearing whatsoever on morality. You know, like it's halal to eat beef, but it's haram to eat pork. Yeah, if I'm just walking down the street, it's about midnight or something like that, I'm hungry, I see a street vendor, and I just think to myself, right, am I in the mood for a hot dog or a burger? You know, one is halal, one is haram, but I don't think anyone in their right mind would say that this is an issue of morality, whether I'm interested in a hot dog or a burger.
Yeah.
You know, but people would. I think even the most fanatical Muslim would realize, well, yeah, in Islam, one is halal, one is haram. But I don't. I mean, Anjem Chowdhury, probably wouldn't say, "Oh, this is actually a moral issue." As you're standing there waiting for, as you're standing there thinking, "Do I want a hot dog or a burger?" I don't think the most fanatical person would say this is an issue of right and wrong, of morality, of good and evil. It's just what's allowed and not allowed. Now, it just happens to turn out.
What about truth?
Well, it just happens to be that there are some things in Islam which are haram, which most people would agree are wrong. You know, and things that are halal, that most people would agree that are good. I mean, I'm just thinking of the 5 pillars. You know, Islam puts a huge emphasis on charity. Now, is this something that I would consider good? Yes. So this is part of the rulings, right?
Well, actually, yes. No.
So you've got rulings that I can actually say, okay, I can actually put my weight behind that and say on a moral level something is moral or immoral. But then you've got the things like my hot dog burger analogy. Again, it's exactly the same. It's the rules set down by the Almighty, and yet it has nothing to do with it. So does Islam actually teach morality, or does it just give you a list of you can do this, you can't do that?
Well, no, it does tell you that you are supposed to tell the truth.
It gives you ethics, because ethics are what moralities end up forming.
Muhammad
had his own morality, and he projected that onto his followers, saying it was God telling him what his moralities were. So for him, charity, being a good thing, was something his followers should do. But he didn't believe in doing charity for people who outside of his little tribe, his group. So that's why you'll find Muslims being taught you can do charity, but only for the in-group. You can't do it for the out-group.
Well, that's something that was just the norm of the time. You know,
it wasn't the norm at the time, because Jesus came before him, something like 700 years before him, who said, let's have a look at the Good Samaritan. The charity given there was an enemy of the Jew. The Samaritans were the Jews who had come before the Jews exiles into Israel and had their own Holy of Holies. They had their own Jewish traditions, and the Jews from Babylon hated them with a passion. So the fact that this Jew was helped by a Samaritan was the antithesis of what was the norm. It was Christians being told, you help everyone, even your worst enemy.
Well, I mean, you could actually look at that story that he used the parable of the Good Samaritan. You could look at it as highlighting Jesus' own innate racism, because, like, you know, I'm saying it was a Samaritan, and it's like, okay, I'm just still sort of sitting here wondering why you're emphasizing that it was a Samaritan that did a good thing. Well, because it was a Samaritan that did it. Like, me and the wife went to Samaria for our last holiday. Lovely people. Can't do enough for you.
Jesus showed his racism when the Roman centurion
I didn't realise there were so many Sammy lovers here.
Jesus showed his racism when he asked, when a slave came to him and said, my master, the centurion's daughter, is dying, please come and save her. And he said, no. And it wasn't until they begged that he actually went. But then again, he was also eventually... These are historical stories in the New Testament. So all I'm trying to say is, yes, he was a bit of a bigot, because at those times they were bits of bigots. The Jewish faith was a bit of the in-group versus the out-group, but the charity was sort of like expanding in the Christian religion. So Muhammad didn't have an excuse to say this is for the in-group only, because the Christians were pushing around the novel idea it includes the out-group as well. Turn the other cheek, be friendly, help the poor. Doesn't matter if they're Jews, doesn't matter if they're pagans, you help the poor. And you probably got the Buddhists, who Muhammad would have heard about through trade, who are also a little bit on the help everybody sort of like sphere. Be one with nature, blah, 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 whatever they do.
Well, I mean, if you want to compare it to Buddhism, then there are certain arguments, if you take certain parables and certain advice of Jesus, that you could argue that this actually is very Buddhist-like teachings, but with a Middle Eastern twist to it. But you can look at so many other verses that Jesus came out with that makes him to be something of a scumbag. You know, the
Okay.
whole "I have not come to bring peace."
Can we go back to Islam now after we're going too far off?
I tried to go back to Islam.
You know, I have come to turn father against son, mother against daughter, brother against sister.
Have you seen the poster put up in the group chat regarding the 7 virtues? Maybe you might be able to find something in those 7 virtues versus deadly sin to give you an idea of how to mould this topic to talk about Islam and the Prophet.
Well, isn't the 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues? Isn't that a Catholic thing? Rather than a
come up with the concept. Can you see from there that Muhammad, did he show any humility? Was Muhammad humble?
Well, I mean, keep in mind that Muhammad is a semi-mythic figure, but there are a number of examples which show charity and humility from Muhammad. There are a number of examples that show hospitality. I can't believe I'm fucking up that word. There are a number of examples that show hospitality to others, even former enemies. You know, there are verses in the Qur'an that say, if someone has been at battle with you, you know, do what you got to do. But if they come to you fleeing persecution, give them shelter. If they come to you seeking peace, make peace with them. You got hadiths that talk about how he invited Christians to his mosque to debate whether or not he was a prophet. And they were, I mean, according to the hadith, you know, you read it and they get in right in his face. Apparently, someone was spitting on him, saying, "No, you're full. You're full of it. You're bullshit. You're a cunt. You're a liar." And he just accepted it, continued debating, and then allowed him to sleep the night in his mosque. You got the prostitute that Muhammad forgave all her sins because she took off her shoe, dipped it in a well, and gave water to a hungry dog. You've got the woman who he actually walked through the desert with. I think like he had a horse or a camel, and he put her on top of it. Walked, I think it was 2 days through the desert, and she's talking about this bloke Muhammad, and he's called himself a prophet, slagging him off for the entire journey. And then when she finally gets to the end, she asks his name. Oh, I'm actually Muhammad. You got you got another one about this old woman that threw shit at him every time he passed the house. And the one time she didn't throw shit at him, he actually got concerned about whether or not she was okay. Went to check up on her, and she was so moved by this act of kindness, converted to Islam on the spot.
Brilliant. Can
I
just
also
go back
got,
to...
if you look at not just Muhammad but Islamic history as well, there was a particular caliph. I can't remember the name of the caliph. I could, if you want me to, I could look it up.
No.
But it was one particular caliph, and there was a drought in the region. It was a really bad. It was a really bad drought, and people were driven to extremes. So the caliph, what he did, recognizing that this was, something of a major situation, suspended Sharia. He suspended the punishments of Sharia, and it was only when the drought passed and life got back to normal that he actually reinstated Sharia punishments.
Okay.
I mean, you have got examples.
Okay. Can we go back to a statement you made earlier where you said zakat was actually good?
No, I said I said you could. What I actually said was I was questioning whether or not Islam teaches morality, or if it just gives you a list of do's and don'ts, and it just so happens that some of these do's coincide with what we would think of as moral, and some of these don'ts coincide with what we would think of as immoral.
Okay,
Islam does make a very particular focus on charity. This is just, I mean, we can talk about it being charity from Muslims to Muslims, or versus actually giving it outside of the Ummah. But charity is usually regarded as a good thing, and Islam does have a massive focus on charity.
No, it doesn't. This is exactly the point I'm trying to make. It does not.
Well, how does it have a focus on charity?
Because what they call charity is not actually charity. What they call charity is maximum doing something good for Muslims, not for other people. What they call charity is also buying a new video camera to convert more people to Islam. So this idea of charity has been, abused like crazy, that it is no longer a matter of just being charity for the sake of charity. In other words, helping kids or feeding the needy or things like that. So the original idea, which says it's a command that you must pay zakat, which is also a good idea behind it, which is a combination, exactly what you are saying, but it has now been raped beyond recognition.
But you've still got people like that today. I mean, you can just read however many news websites about immigrants coming in and needing our protection, and there's hundreds of comment after comment after comment saying, no, not our problem, we look after our own, close the borders. I mean, this concept of looking after yourself or looking after yourself first, that hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, but this is still prevalent in Islam. Even the charities in the UK, if you see where they are putting that money, it is only to Muslims.
Well, I've made this comment before myself, but you know, there are some Muslim charities that also cater to non-Muslims as well. I mean, I particularly remember one charity going around in London, and what they actually did, I actually found this quite funny. They put a red sticker on food that was haram. So like they go around and give charity to Muslims and non-Muslims, but it's like, okay, is there a red sticker on this? Right, that's haram, so we'll give that to the non-Muslims. It was still charity though.
Muslims, it was a media Jew, and he would shit on Muhammad's doorstep every morning. I don't know about that story. I just know about the woman throwing vegetables at Muhammad. This one I know. The shitting on a doorstep I have not heard. Okay, the point is, what about truth? The Quran commands people to be truthful, not to lie. Now, this is a virtue, this is a value, it's a universal value. Like honesty is one of the things that everybody says that they cherish, but then at the end of the day it doesn't. So how does that get transported?
Well, I mean, to say that Islam commands Islam commands honesty, yes, that is technically true, but it's also technically true that it's considered a sin to expose someone's actions. You know, that if you spread rumors, things like that, this can be bad. And even if you say to someone, oh, Ali there, you know that he once did this and that, which was a really bad thing. You know, I think isn't it supposed to be like a minor sin to actually expose secrets?
Well, to denounce other Muslims, yeah.
Not to denounce, but to actually, you know, gossip and talk about what people have done.
Yes.
You know, hide your sins. Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
That's also frowned upon, I would call it that. But the funny thing is, you're supposed to tell the truth, but on the other hand, you're allowed to lie. You're allowed to lie, and I mean, war is deceit. If you think that you are at war, you can tell people whatever you want. And if I look at the number of Muslim apologists who lie through their teeth, how does that work together? I don't
well, if you want to talk about lying, whether or not lying is good or bad, I mean, think of the Shia doctrine of taqiyya. You know, I mean, a lot of people have wrongly assumed that it's part of the Islamic faith as a whole that you lie to non-Muslims, which is just bullshit. What taqiyya actually says, it's purely a Shia doctrine, and that's just if a Sunni asks you if you're a Sunni or a Shia, you can lie and say that you're a Sunni, so that you don't die. And I'm just going to see who that is.
Well, the Shia doctrine of taqiyya is being copied by the Sunnis because they're lying their asses off. So that is no different. So the point here is that even though one of the values, which is truth and honesty, which is being transported in Islam, is being contradicted within Islam immediately. So I don't know what is left of this value. Okay, then should we find some other examples, or shall we just leave it? Oh, Mr. Thunderous is here.
I just arrived.
Because I see that you're still active on ex-Muslim show. I don't know what that is about.
I thought that I didn't know where I was going. I ended up there and I didn't mean to.
Right. Can you take some names?
Yeah, I don't quite understand what his story is. I'll have to talk to him and see what that is, what that was all about. Okay, do we have anybody else with any kind of values or something who wants to talk about that in comparison with Islam?
I just wanted to know how it was a Shia sort of like protestation about lying when it was written in the Quran.
No, those are two different concepts, I believe. The Shia one is that you are allowed to lie when it threatens your own life when you are being accused of being a Muslim. Or when it
I'm fairly
a Shia and then you can say, no, I'm actually a Sunni.
Yeah,
and I'm fairly certain that Fia specifically is about.
Hey guys, come on! You can't constantly talk at the same time.
I'm just going to say,
if you both talk, nobody understands anything.
I'm just trying to figure out why it was that the Shia are supposed to have come out with this when obviously Muhammad would have come out with it because he might have been having spies in these caravan trails who were giving him information about when to raid them. And of course, he'd wanted spies to be able to lie and say, "Oh no, we're not Muslims. We're not followers of Muhammad." I mean, it'd be making perfect sense for them to lie, wouldn't it? A spy, just like the what do you call those Indian lot? The Thuggies. They used to lie during caravan trails.
I've never heard of the Thuggies.
Oh, the Thuggies in India. Some of the mythology is they could have been Muslim tribes who stopped being Muslims and became thugs, but still practiced attacking caravan trails by pretending to be part of the group and friendly. Or they could have been Hindu who were part of the cult that was doing it. Nobody knows anymore for certain, but the British stamped it out of India.
Well, we're just talking about lying as something moral. If you think of like parents that raise children, or anyone who's in charge of a child, an adult, someone in a position of authority that's in charge of a child, when you have incredibly strict authority figure, when you have someone that will probably hit you if you tell them the truth, or won't believe you when you tell the truth. I mean, the strictest parents that actually use the cane, over and over and over, they have children that grow up to be pathological liars. It's a habit that they find very hard to break because they don't feel safe telling the truth.
So then what? Then they lie or what?
Well, it's just a pathological thing. It manifests in incredible ways. Like there was this one lad I knew. And I just asked, and I just saw him fiddling about in the fridge. I asked him what he was eating, and he said chicken. And then he just stopped, and he said, "No, it was not chicken; it's sweet corn." And I went over, and he was munching on a bowl of sweet corn, and I'm just like, well, "Why don't you just say sweet corn?" And you could see that he was struggling to answer, and he just said, "I don't know." It was just, and you should have seen his parents. You know, I mean, they would beat the shit out of him if you ever caught him doing anything wrong. This is a part. I mean, I've looked into this because I'm curious myself. Because I always noticed that people that had parents that were really strict like this were excellent liars, even if they didn't want to be. You know, I was just one lad I know that he's actually really worried about how much he lies, and he really wants to break the habit, but it's so ingrained into him because he wasn't safe telling the truth.
Wow.
Ricky Gervais.
I'm not talking about Ricky Gervais.
The Invention of Lying. Have you not heard that?
Oh, that's a good film.
It's a good film, but it doesn't end with him saying that it's a gene. It's part of the DNA. It was some kind of flaw that allowed us to lie.
Well, no. I mean,
I'm trying to find out.
The whole concept of this film, The Invention of Lying, is the human race never evolved the ability to lie.
Yeah.
So therefore, in this world, there's no fiction. Everyone is just brutally honest because we do not have the ability. So because there is no such thing as an untruth, you know, there is no word for lie because it doesn't exist. So everything that he says is automatically believed. I remember at one point in the film, he was sitting in a bar, and he was talking to his mates, and he was trying to explain that I can do this thing, I can say something that isn't, and then he tried it out, and it's like, I'll tell you what, my right arm has been cut off. I have no right arm. Really? Oh, that's an incredible prosthetic. I am a 54-year-old black Eskimo. Really? You're very pale. Do you have some white in your ancestry? And it's like whatever he said, it was just believed, no matter how outrageous.
I'm trying to say what happened at the end. It says that we've got something in our bodies that allows us to lie. That was
like he genetically passed on his ability to lie to his son.
Yeah.
Okay, but we are now in a position that we can lie. Why is it that so many people, especially Muslim apologists, or maybe it's also, I don't know so many Christian apologists, but I know Muslim apologists who lie like crazy. Why is that?
Well, there are some people that it's very unnatural for them to lie. You know, there are some people with OCD, and one of the symptoms of their OCD is honesty, truthfulness.
Right. So
and they have to learn, and they actually have to learn to to sort of limit what they say. It's like, okay, I'll still tell the truth, but only as much as I want.
Yeah, okay. But then exactly you get to the situation that is depicted in the movie where it's brutally honest and then it doesn't really work anymore.
But then you also have...
When I'm pregnant, yes, you look terrible when you're pregnant.
But with reference...
that's lying to spare someone's feelings, you know. I mean, I once knew this old Christian woman, and occasionally she'd like to debate the Bible with me, but she was just so hung up on her faith. And like she'd talk about when she dies and she's going to go to heaven and she's going to see her brother and things like that. And she was a very lonely woman, and she would actually cry. She would have tears pouring down her face, and I'd just go along with it because I just thought, you know what, fuck it. I do not want to. I do not want to break her faith. And you know, I mean, sometimes we like to comfort. You know, yeah. I mean, I lie to children all the time. You know, like when my other cousin's pet cat died, I lied. I made up some bullshit story about how the cat's really happy now, and you know, it was to soothe them. It was to make them feel better. Like or a mate of mine died when I was a teenager. She was trying to put on makeup. She put on a shitload, and she asked me, "Does this make me look like a clown?" I told her half truth. I said half of the truth, which was, no, it doesn't make you like a clown, and didn't say it makes you look like a prostitute who caters exclusively to clowns.
Can I just go back to the why Muslim apologists lie? Why do they lie? Is it not a case of because they're defending a lie? The only way you can defend a lie is with more lies. So you can't.
That's a good point.
You can't defend lies with truth.
Okay.
Unless you're a politician, then you can lie.
Well, I think this is basically why theists always lose in debates.
And also when you consider that the punishment in Islam is death if you leave, you have no choice but to lie to defend the lie, or you know you're going to have your head removed quite swiftly.
But a lot of the just picking up your point about apologists, and I'm assuming you'd also include these, you know, dour people out looking for converts. I do consider them liars because I've never met one that I don't think is a liar. But the way that they seem to look at it, it's not that they're lying. It's that, okay, now Islam is really hard for non-Muslims, so let's just ease them into it. Let's get a shahada out of them, and once they get the shahada, you know, we'll sort of break it to them that there's a shitload more that comes with it.
Like death if you leave.
Yep.
I get.
Well, a lot of Muslims now are actually saying, you know, it's not death just because you don't believe. It's death if you make mischief in the land or if you're a traitor. So, you know, if you want to just leave the religion, keep your head down and go on with it.
There you go. So they get lied to straight away. But with reference to like what you were saying there about they're trying to ease people for the sake of dawah, I would say that they're lying, but it's a lying through a process of rationalization.
It's lying in the sense that, I mean, some people don't realize this when I point out to them. it is possible to lie with the truth. Now, if you're very selective in what you say, like with these Dawa people, they know if they just completely spill the beans on all the rules and regulations and community relations, things like that, they know that their convert level is going to go down because they'll think, oh, fuck it, no, it just sounds too much. So they don't lie in a way that they say something that's not untrue. They're just very selective with their truth to paint a false picture. Okay. And then, like I said, once they've actually got the shahada, they'll tell them all the things that they left out.
Yeah, so to understand your point, it'd be a bit like, I mean, this is what I would say is like a deception in the way you're trying to describe it then.
Well, it's a deception. It's lying with the truth.
When they're saying, like, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, yet the reality is it's not growing through conversion, it's growing through birth rate. So they don't give down the reason why it's growing, they imply it's through conversion, but the reality is it's through birth rate. But still, claims is being made the fastest growing religion in the world.
It also depends on what you consider to be the fastest growing, if you're talking sheer numbers or if you're talking percentage-wise.
No, we're talking. I'm not talking that it is, because I don't believe for a minute that it is. I'm saying when you've got a Dawa person saying, because they do it so often, it's the fastest growing religion in the world. When it meets critics of Islam, well, if it's so bad, it's the fastest growing religion. Well, these converts can't lie, and they say it in such ways too that the layperson who's sitting there on the side listening to that kind of dialogue would somehow be fooled, well, there must be some truth in Islam if so many people are converting to it. The reality is the conversion is through birth rate, not through conversion. So that's how I'm interpreting the way you say they tell a truth with a lie, or a lie with a truth.
Well, I mean, from just from my conversations with Muslims and ex-Muslims, but primarily ex-Muslims, sort of the picture that's painted to me is, at least when it comes to converts, it's like a revolving door.
Okay, my argument to that is that, you see, they have no central office to count the figures. So what form of Islam are they converting to? Who is doing the conversion? How are they converting? You know, normally, let's take, for instance, you're converting somebody to a particular Christian faith. Normally there's an educational process to go through, and the numbers are collated, whether you're Church of England or whether you're Catholic. There is a central office to catch these figures. Who's catching the figures for the Muslims, bro? What form and how?
Yeah, I mean, like there's no census that says specifically, are you Shia, are you Sufi, are you Sunni, are you like what kind of Sunni? Are you Halafi, are you Dabani? And yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like Islam. Are you a Muslim?
As an example, I know some Jehovah's Witnesses, and at the end of the year, they produce a book where they tell you how many publishers they have, how many Bible studies, how many hours they do, what the publisher to baptism ratio is per country. And that's public access, and you can see that they're quite transparent in the way that they do their figures, if it was to how many people are joining or leaving the organisation. Whereas with Islam, there is no collated figures that they give to the public to justify the statement that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. Yeah, the really
funny thing is what annoys some of them is those Muslims who insist that atheism is a religion, and I always say to them, well, if you actually look at the statistics, if you really want to say atheism is a religion, then this is religion growing way faster than Islam.
Absolutely.
Atheism is the fastest growing religion.
And now that China has removed this one-child policy, it'll be even faster.
Sorry, what was that? Andres, can you just repeat that, because I didn't pick that up at all.
Raven just said that if you want to class atheism as a religion, then atheism is the fastest growing religion in the world. I agree with that statement, and now that China has removed its one-child policy, atheism will be even faster.
Oh, okay, China and the one-child. Okay, now I got it, because there's some echo. I don't know why, and I didn't understand what you said. Okay, now I got it. So it's the policy of having only one child has been lifted. Yes. And what you're saying, well, yeah, but in China you also get more and more religions now that they've relaxed this a bit.
Well, it's not just, I think also it's worth pointing out that there are atheists that don't know that they're atheists, because they have an idea of what an atheist is. What is an atheist? Well, an atheist is a devil worshipper. An atheist is a psychopath. An atheist is this. An atheist is that. I'm not any of them. I just don't believe in God.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. I mean, it was only when I had a job interview in Abu Dhabi and the guy said to me, "Ah, but you're an atheist." I said, "What do you mean I'm an atheist?" "No, I just don't believe in God." But I didn't know that I was an atheist.
Yeah, I mean, atheists don't know they're atheists.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. For me, an atheist was something terrible.
No, but they have all these connotations, and
I did.
Yeah, but it's like I mean, there are some religious people. They ask me if they say like, "Oh, are you religious?" or "What's your religion?" And I'll be like, "Oh, no, I'm not religious." Or like, "Do you have a religion?" "No, I don't." And then they'll just start talking, and then they'll just like start talking about Charles Darwin, and it's like they seem to think that this is the atheist prophet, and it's like you do realize you're the one that brought it up, right? I don't give a shit.
Yeah, this is.
I go through my day. I'm not thinking praise Darwin. I'm not thinking, you know, I'm mostly thinking what I want for breakfast, or if I've paid my bills, and you know, I don't go around thinking atheist, 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 evolution, 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 evolution. It doesn't have any impact whatsoever on my life. I mean, apart from medicine.
I think theists believe that an atheist must get up in the morning and think, "Oh my God, there's no God."
I know, but it is quite interesting, because I've had these conversations with theists before. I mean, usually some type of Muslim or Christian, but occasionally other religions as well, but mainly Abrahamics. And I'll ask them, okay, what do you think an atheist is? An atheist is this and that, but we'll always have connotations with them. Like, I remember I was talking to this Iraqi Muslim who was absolutely shocked when I told him there are atheists that believe in heaven. And he didn't believe me until I actually gave him this article written by an atheist on why he believes in heaven. And, you know, because like...
Incarnation, karma, all sorts of things, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, you know, just because there's a God. But even if I was to accept that there was a God, you know, just because I accept there's a God doesn't mean I necessarily believe in an afterlife. I mean, look at
But this is why I do the definitions at the beginning of each and every show.
I could not believe in a God and still believe in an afterlife. I think it was actually in the papers a few months ago that more and more people in the UK actually believe in an afterlife without believing in God. There was one of the people that contributed to the article was this bloke. I can't remember his name, but he was from the Muslim Council of Britain, and he was that slim one with a beard that was in that documentary When Tommy Met Mo, Leaving the EDL. You know, I think I remember Tommy shook his hand and he said, if you know, all Muslims were like you, it wouldn't be a problem. I can't remember his name.
Why do you make a story from a story from a story from a story before you get to the story?
Yeah. Anyway, I can't remember his name, but that's the man. But he just wrote to the paper that a lot of Muslims will be very surprised by this and even confused by it. The fact that there are so many people who don't believe in God but do believe in happily ever after.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, or is that it? I can see that we're not really getting into this value thing. I had this idea, but that didn't work out. All right, guys. Then, shall we go to the Hadith of the week and then call it a day for today? I found a really brilliant Hadith of the week. It's a really, really long one. So I will need to read this for half an hour. It's from Abu Dawud this time. It's from 41, and it's number 4802. And it goes like this. The best places to sit are those which provide the most room. Yeah, that's it.
Well, if you want to feel snug.
I feel like this is so good. The best places to sit are those which provide the most room. Now, this is a hadith. It's authentic, or graded as authentic, and this is what helps you go to heaven. This is the guidance that you need. The best places to sit are those which provide the most room. That's what you need to know to be a Muslim. Okay, guys, thanks very much.
Would anyone make the argument that ideas of heaven and hell by themselves are intrinsically immoral?
Yes.
Why?
Because they are carrot and stick. They are there to, well, I call it, it's indoctrination, it's brainwashing, and it's being used to traumatize children.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, it's also it's a very observable fact that as social creatures, some sense of morality, like we create our own systems of right and wrong, but it's also instinctive to us.
Sorry,
You know,
I'm just
it's
reading the comment.
to do this. Well, I have noticed, particularly with people from strict religious households, that their belief in heaven and hell actually leads to a retardation of their own innate compass of right and wrong. It actually, and I will repeat that, a retardation, to the point that, I mean, you see these you see these theists who go on about, like, oh, if I don't believe in God, if I don't believe in heaven and hell, I'd steal, I'd rape, I'd murder. I actually had a friend who was, I don't talk to him anymore, sadly, but he was an ex-Muslim from Manchester, and he was just telling me about how, like, his mother, his own mother, genuinely could not understand why he still wants to be a good person now that he doesn't believe in heaven and hell. He has no threat of flames licking his skin. He has no promise of joy. So what would you be moral for? And if you look at this idea that the reason that you do something good or something bad is when it has nothing to do with empathy, when it has nothing to do with being able to realize that other people are real people. They're not cardboard cutouts. They think, they feel, they laugh, they cry. They're just like you. And it just retards it. It retards your empathy. It retards your own spiritual growth. It retards your moral compass to not only perverse, I would say dangerous levels. If your own mother can't understand why you want to be a good person, something is fucked up.
That's when you become an Islamophobe.
But no, I mean, any comments on that? I mean, has anyone actually been through that where like people genuinely can't grasp why you're not a psychopath just by virtue of not believing in God?
Nope.
Thunderous?
I've never been in touch with anybody that deluded.
I need to think about the subject a little bit more.
Pardon?
I need to think about that one a little bit more. I'm not going to comment unless I've thought about it.
Oh, fair enough.
All right, guys, and we'll see you next week. Enjoy the week, enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we shall see you next week again.
Okay.
And I'll need to have a chat with ex-Muslim to see what the fuck his problem is and see what's going on there. All right, then, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.